Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This episode of the D-Lew Podcast is brought to you by Goalie Nutrition. As someone who's used Goalie for quite some time, I can tell you that they're not only very good, but they're very beneficial. My favorite are the Super Green Gummies. The Super Green Gummies are uniquely crafted with a spectrum of essential nutrients such as vitamins A, B12, folic acid, and thiamine. It supports a healthy liver function, healthy nervous and immune system, digestive health, a boost to your metabolism, and overall health and well-being. There are no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or colors from artificial sources. They're vegan-friendly, gluten-free, and gelatin-free. All loyal listeners of the D-Lew Podcast get a special 10% discount at checkout. Go to goalie.com, use promo code DLEW. That's goalie.com, use promo code DLEW. This podcast is a Believe Network and Siete production. Welcome to another edition of the D-Lew Podcast, brought to you by Believe Network. I'm your host, Derrick T. Lewis, and I want to thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode, in addition to all of the past episodes that, has been listened to by the public. Thank you all so very, very much for your love and support. Well, wow, hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend. I know mine was pretty action-packed. Last Friday, I had SWF wrestling. Friday was called American Made. We had that event. So got in, got out, and by the way, best wishes to Rob Fury and a healthy, speedy recovery. Hope you feel better. Hope you get better soon. And the next day I had Monster Factory Passion, down in Paulsboro, New Jersey. So I was literally all over the state of New Jersey Friday and Saturday. Sunday, for me, it was just a nice, relaxing day for the most part. And of course, Monday, I had a studio session. I had to get some stuff done, and we're trying to get this new music out to you guys. When that's going to happen, stay freaking tuned. I cannot wait for you all to hear this song. It's going to be really, really good. But this week, there's a guy I met a couple years ago when I was teaching an acting class in Philly, and he was working on a series on HBO, and he was doing some work in New York City. His name is Brandon Michael Maddox, and he's an actor as well as a stand-up comedian. So you all are going to really get to know him, how he transitioned from the acting world into the world of stand-up comedy, which is an incredible story in itself. So sit back, relax, and let's not wait any longer. My interview with Brandon Michael Maddox starts right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to bring onto this episode of the D-Lew Podcast, actor, comedian, Brandon Michael Maddox out of South Jersey. Thank you so much for coming up to the show. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. It's a pleasure, and I really appreciate it, man. Honestly, it's good to see you again.
Likewise, man. It's been far too long. So let's hop into it, man. So you grew up in Marlton, New Jersey, South Jersey, and you have some, mom and dad and siblings. So talk about life growing up in South Jersey.
Yeah, well, pretty much, I grew up in decent sized town. Was one town where just kind of not that everyone knew everyone, but it was very connected and such like that. Right. Yeah, growing up with my mom and dad, I was definitely no one in my family had a acting or stage bone, I guess.
Right.
So it was very odd that I got into it. And especially I got two older brothers. They are definitely not like that. They do their own thing. So to get the entertainment bug was
right.
a little impressive to them, I guess.
For sure, for sure.
And
Now,
yeah.
so what was your first exposure to entertainment? So whether it was film, television, or anything like that?
I remember I was always at the movies with my dad. We would go just see pretty much anything. Like when I was a young kid, like the animated movies, like so vividly remember like seeing like Madagascar like 3
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, and like we saw like all the Marvel movies. I remember like seeing the first Iron Man and just like all the Marvel movies and just anything that was big and popular that just was the talk of the town for the year, whether it was the superhero movie or the action movie. And then, yeah, I remember even like watching TV with my mom. It was a lot of like, like Gordon Ramsay shows. We loved his like Hell's Kitchen and everything.
Right.
So it was always just watching it, being like, that I want to be on that. I want to be on the screen. Like I want people to watch me. So
I had the same thing when I was 4. I saw for the very first time, I saw Mommy Dearest when I was 4 years old.
okay.
Now, for all intents and purposes, for those that know or don't know, Mommy Dearest is about the actress Joan Crawford and basically how she treated her adopted children. And it was borderline scary in some
Mm,
scenes. But I was exposed to that at 4, and I knew right then and there that I wanted to be an actor because Faye Dunaway's portrayal of Joan Crawford was impeccable. Because I was calling her Joan Crawford. I didn't even realize like as I was getting older, I'm like, oh, Faye Dunaway, oh, that's her name. Oh, wow.
yeah.
Because literally, because when I had seen pictures of the actual Joan Crawford and Faye Dunaway, they did an incredible job casting her because she resembles her
Yeah.
quite a bit. So I totally understand what you're saying, and just you're fixated on this larger than life, universe, of entertainment, film, and television. So I totally get what you're saying. So as you were growing up, let's talk about school sports, school plays. How was that like for you?
Oh, well, the school sports was certainly not my forte, I'll tell you that. Growing up, it was when I was young, I think around maybe like 14 or 15, maybe even younger than that, I
Mm-hmm.
got like a niche for magic tricks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like really where the entertainment bone started. Whereas I remember watching Penn and Teller like perform on whether it was like Fallon or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they had their show on the CW and
Mm-hmm.
just being so like amazed of like, I know it's a trick, but I'm watching this and they're in on it, but I'm not. And
Mm-hmm.
then just learning that, and not that I even remember, you know, all the magic tricks I did as a kid, but like, some stuff is muscle memory. I can let me tell you, give me a deck of cards, I could still probably do a bunch of party tricks. And that was my first thing of just doing that at school. And people thought it was like cool or anything like that. And obviously everyone's like, well, you know how you did it. And well, they never did. So that was kind of the fun of it. And then just slowly trying to, watching them do magic and be funny made me want to try being funny. And then it was kind of seeing them also appear on like TV shows. It was like weird how like everything kind of just sprawled into another.
Intertwining, right? Now,
Exactly.
you speaking of you being a magician. Now you have some YouTube stuff when
I
you were
had,
doing
I
magic
had
trick. Let's talk about that for a second.
okay. Yeah, that was my first foray into making content was at 16 or something years old, uh doing what was Magic Bolt 1. I filmed it in this room. I'm actually at my parents' house right now.
Okay.
so so weird to just be creating content in this room again. Yeah, that was just posting magic videos and pretty much whatever I wanted. And I have a couple of them saved away on an old laptop that will never see the light of day. But just looking back and just seeing like the early things of passion and just being so happy to just record and create.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that was quite literally, I was one of the only people in my class that took YouTube, I guess, quote unquote, seriously, like always
Mhm.
posted a lot.
Right.
And that was like, I guess odd for some people to be like post videos on YouTube and everything, but I loved it, just creating, and people would talk about it at school, and that's what I was happy about. Is people were talking. I knew that was good on a branding thing of just being like people are talking about my stuff. That's good. Like,
Yeah, I mean, because I mean I guess that's our two generations. Because I mean, you think about it, YouTube came out in 2005. Think about that for a second, and think about how lucrative being, having content on YouTube is these days. You know what I mean? So your generation, it was just like right time. You're able to have all of these, tools at your arsenal. You know what I mean? You can utilize them. And a lot of people still don't understand the power of being able to create your own stuff. You can literally, all you need is a smartphone and yourself, and you can do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, especially looking back at the old stuff, it's filmed on like a webcam or whatever, but like now it's these cameras are amazing HD and some are 4K.
Big time.
It's like,
yeah,
like especially like acting, like self tapes are just so much better and clearer, just so much easier to do because you don't need $1,000 of equipment. Like you get a good light and you're good with an iPhone. It's so amazing.
Yeah, even looking back at some of my older self tapes from like 2013, 2014 versus now, it's like it looks like the Stone Age compared to now. Yeah. Seriously, and when I look at some of my self tapes on Actors Access, I'm like, my goodness. So you're doing the YouTube deal, and then you go to college, but then you realize, I'm not sure if I want to continue to do that. So when did you make that decision in regards to college, and maybe that wasn't for you?
Well, let me tell you, that was quite the decision. I graduated high school after not being a good student for a lot of years. I barely passed my freshman year and then kind of kicked myself in the ass. And like, listen, you want to walk with your friends at graduation and you don't want to be redoing high school. So, I put a little bit of effort in, ended up getting good grades, honor roll a couple times. And then going to college, it was such a different experience.
And which school did you go to, by the way?
So I went to RCBC. It was a community college in, I think, Medford.
Okay.
And again, it was a nice campus and, the classes were fine and professors were fine, but something about it was such a different way of learning that didn't stick with me. And I knew what I wanted to do. So I knew I didn't, quote unquote, particularly need a piece of paper defining me as an actor. And there's especially no stand-up comedy degrees.
Right.
So, I remember telling my parents, like, I don't want to go back next semester. And I would jump out of a plane with a 50-50 parachute, then have that conversation again. It was, it's hard being like, I don't want to do this. I want to do acting and stand-up. And, you probably know that's a very hard thing. And
very hard. And but I think also too, and our parents, they want, the best, or what they might think is the best for you, but only you are gonna know that within yourself. So I think when parents hear that conversation for the first time, as far as what you truly want to do, and maybe they envision something even bigger for you, but maybe it doesn't feel right. So only you're gonna know that. Only you can make that decision for yourself. Now, were you focusing on theater, TV? Or or all the above?
So I never picked a degree to major in, but I found out when I told them, like I told the school, like, hey, I'm dropping out. They go, you're going to give up your amazing theater degree? And I went, I didn't even know I was going for a theater degree. I had no idea. I guess someone just signed that up because even when doing the when you go to the campus and like just talk to people, I guess at some point I said like, yeah, I do acting, and they're like, all right, theater degree. I was like, okay.
Oh, well, so they just automatically assumed you were going there for theater.
I guess so. I was just like, okay.
Now, talk about your first musical performance. I know you said that you were around 15 when you were at the Morristown Theater Company and you played Jafar in Aladdin. So let's talk about that for a second. What was that experience like for you?
So as for the theater company, honestly, they're still running today, and the productions and the people there are so talented. And I learned a lot about being on stage from the director of the show. His name was Mark Morgan, and I really do still owe him a lot because even during rehearsals and auditions, I found myself for some reason would be standing, but I'd be swaying back and forth. And he taught me so quickly, like just stand there and just be, stand a straight line. You're not swaying back and forth. You're not on a boat. And something little as that, like just that one quick lesson taught me so much. And there was extra time at rehearsals. Like you do like improv just to keep yourself sharp. And I'd give a lot of credit to that with my crowd work now and just being quick on my feet. So that production was a lot of fun and taught me a lot about live audiences very quickly. And honestly, just the thrill of it. Because I remember I did it because I always wanted to do a stage musical. And I had stage fright up until... So I had stage fright. Like I loved the idea. I loved the idea of being on stage. But I was like, I'm going to be in front of so many people. And this auditorium was a good size one with, good amount of seats sold. Yeah. And I remember I'm about to walk on stage and I'm nervous. And they go, what's the problem? Some stage manager. And I go, I'm being honest, I'm having stage fright. And he goes, well, I got bad news for you. It's a little too late for that. And he kind of just gave me a little push out onto the stage. I'm like, guess we can't have that anymore. I guess I guess we're on. But honestly, really great. And for someone who back in 15 or so, couldn't carry a fucking tune, let me tell you that. I'm no master singer now, but I have a video of that performance, and it is so hard to watch.
Wow. And we're going to get back to some stage stuff a little bit later, but when did you start taking, acting classes, for film and TV?
Yeah, I took that at a studio that I don't believe is around anymore called Acting House Studios. It was in Medford. And my acting teacher, her name was Sandy Turner, whose daughter is Morgan Turner. She was in the Jumanji films, the most recent ones.
Okay.
Yeah, she is the teenager who transforms into Karen Gillan.
Yes.
I got to meet her. She is the nicest person in the world, and her mom, two of the most kindest and most intelligent people. And I absolutely loved having Sandy as my acting teacher. I think she lives in New York now, so I think her and I are very close. But when just the things she taught me and how much she just showed herself off in a scene, like I was like jealous of, like, I wish I could get to that point. And I don't even think I'm to that point now. So it's like I owe her so much. And it's very rare, but every once in a while, Morgan and I will like message back and forth, just life updates and everything. And every once in a while, I reach out to Sandy and I'm like, hey, I need a monologue. And she's like, I got you. She'll send like a handful over. So I love, just knowing them. And I owe Sandy just so much because she, to this day, greatest acting teacher. And I hands down owe her so much.
Right. And, there's people that in my past that they have that same impact on me. And one in particular is my English professor, Roberta Blender. She was very impressed with my writing, and I, like you, did not finish college, but she told me, I think maybe after the first or second class, because we had to write as an assignment. She just wanted to know what we did for the previous summer. And I had just finished, a season of drum corps. I was really passionate about it, as far as what happened the whole entire year. And she was like, you seem really, really passionate about this. I'm like, yeah. And she said, I don't care what you do beyond this point, whatever you do, don't ever stop writing. And I still talk to her to this very day. She knows what I'm doing, in the entertainment, realm. And, she always says that she's proud, and she always knew that I had it in me to do it. But all it takes is just one person to believe in you, and especially in the space that we're in, to get to where you want to be. But I wanted to ask you, you starting off in theater, was there an adjustment for you, both good or bad, going from theater to film and television? Was there an adjustment period or no?
I mean, the one thing about theater is, you know, I believe there's like a famous quote that Josh Gad once said where it's, you know, film and television, you can act, but theater makes you an actor. And I thought that quote was very bold. And I
Yeah.
get what he's saying, where it's like, you know, you mess up a line, TV, film, you do another take, try it, get it right. You do it until you're happy. Theater, live audience, you mess up a line, you gotta roll with it. You gotta
Right.
just keep going. And trust me, I've had my handful of fumbles on stage, which I got a great story for you with that.
Hey, let's talk about it now.
There we go. So I was doing the Morristown Theater Company Shrek the Musical, and I was playing one of the captain of the, I think his name was Captain of the Guards. It was like Lord Farquaad's right hand man, and it was me and another gentleman named, I want to say Kenny. So opening night, we put on the costumes, and the director comes up and goes, "Would it be funny if Shrek's going to yell when that happens? Kenny's going to jump into your arms and just run off stage with him." Like, that's funny, sure. We had never practiced it with costumes on, which the costumes were just a little bulky, so it was more comfortable.
Yeah.
But he also gave us swords to go on stage with, so we never practiced with like these props in our hand.
Oh boy.
So this is opening night. Shrek yells. Kenny jumps into my arms. I don't got him. I'm barely holding on to him. I got like 2 fingers on his leg. I go, I don't got this.
Oh my God.
So I'm sitting there, and I just feel the sweat going down my head. And Shrek finishes his line. I turned and I tripped and I just chucked this kid on stage. And it was terrible. The audience was losing it. So I didn't know what to do. And he's just laying there. Shrek's looking at me. The audience is laughing, and I'm just frozen. So I just grabbed him and I just rolled him off stage. And it's like thunking as he's rolling. We go backstage, and someone goes, "What was that giant crash on stage?" And I went, "Kenny." I was like, "That was Kenny."
Wow.
It was like such an experience. I remember the next night the director's like, we're not gonna do swords.
Yeah. Too many elements, and especially they call an audible like that right before you go on stage without really rehearsing it. Like the idea of, wanted to do something like that with somebody with different elements, you might want to rehearse that, before you bring it out to the public, especially opening night.
It was just like, I couldn't believe it. And I think in the same performance, like Shrek's nose fell off, but he made a joke about it, which was really funny. It was this show of like, we're gonna roll with it.
Right. So in your estimation, when you're talking about your experiences with theater, what did you gain most from your theater experience?
That's a really good question. I guess what I gained most was just discipline. That's probably the best way to put it, as in, you have 2-3 months of rehearsals and then you're on.
Right.
So being on top of lines, notes, if musical, blocking, comedic beats, and just being prepared in time. I, am extremely lucky with, the TV, film roles that I get, but I don't care if I have 6 months to learn it. I treat it like we're filming next week, because, at any point during rehearsals for musicals, I've had directors go, I'm going to test you guys, drop the scripts. And, he's not expecting perfection, but, you want to look good. So definitely discipline, just being on top, knowing your stuff, and just coming prepared, just knowing what do you need to bring and what do you need to just make the rest of the day go by smoothly and make it everyone's job much easier.
Now, when you and I met about 2 years ago, I know you were doing some stuff on HBO. What other television projects have you worked on?
So after that gig, I got right away onto Three Women, which was a Showtime show that Showtime canceled before it premiered. And then I believe Stars picked it up. Now, it's still not out, and I appear a decent amount in that show, so it's like that's the one that I want to come out.
Right.
Yeah, but I Google that show every once in a while. It got, canceled and then bought by this network, and it's just waiting. So, I mean, I got paid for it. So.
Right. Nah, I hear you. Now, you did another production, was with Voorhees Theater Company. It was called Disaster. Let's talk about that one for a second.
So yeah, Disaster holds a very special place in my heart, where I saw the Broadway cast I saw the Broadway show.
Okay.
When it was a limited run. It was only on Broadway for a couple weeks because it had an all-star cast of big Broadway names and big TV names.
Right.
So, that show is close to my heart because I got to see it and then be in it, as I played Professor Ted, which is more or less the lead character. It's an ensemble piece, but he is more or less the lead character.
Okay.
And I figured you were bringing this up, so I had to grab it. I ended up actually keeping the script for the show. I even have all my notes still in it. And I love this so much because it's such a funny show. It's the craziest thing. It's like every 70s movie disaster, like hurricane, tornado, like rats and all that, just put into it. And all the music's like Hot Stuff by Donna Summers, Sky High by Jigsaw, like just good 70s pop hits.
Okay.
And that show also was an anomaly because it was during the second rise of COVID cases. So auditions were held, the show was cast, we auditioned, and we started rehearsing. And 1 week before opening night, they shut down the production. So we had put in all this work, and then the day of our first ever dress rehearsal, everything was canceled. And they said, we'll just pick up in we'll say 2 or 3 weeks when cases go down. Cases didn't go down, and they didn't want to risk anything. And there was some
for sure
older people in the cast, and there was very young kids in the cast that we didn't want to expose them.
Right.
So we ended up going on hiatus for, I believe, 6 months. And then we came back for, I think, another 2 to 3 months of rehearsals. And then when we got our final show dates, there was a risk of a third rise in COVID. But thankfully, the rise, I don't think it rose to a concerning level, or it had risen maybe a week or two after.
Okay.
So we so luckily did the show, and it is the longest show Voorhees has ever put on, technically, from auditions to opening night. And obviously the first one during a pandemic. And it was absolutely insane. And another big thing about that show that was special was it was a cast of adults. The youngest cast member, I think, was maybe 13. He played like a kid in the show.
Okay.
And the biggest thing was there was honestly no drama. With every production, there's some of the drama backstage is more interesting than the drama on stage. But with this, I think it was all adults. We were all friendly. Everyone was just so nice to each other. And I remember opening night, the director came backstage. Her name's Sandy, another Sandy, and just gave like a really heartfelt speech of like how much the show meant to her. And I pulled one of the stage managers to the side. I'm like, is that like something she says every show? And he goes, I've worked here for like 10 years. I've never heard her say stuff like that. So it was a really meaningful thing. And I met a lot of long-term friends and people that I'm just honored to share the stage with in that show. And I mean, there was no drama till after the production closed, but that's I'm not saying I was involved in it, but I guess a breakup just kind of divides some people. But that
well, you know the vibes.
Yeah, but they also let me keep a prop from the show. So
that's cool. Nice.
I love it so much.
This episode of the D-Lew Podcast is brought to you by Goalie Nutrition. As someone who's used Goalie for quite some time, I can tell you that they're not only very good, but they're very beneficial. My favorite are the Super Green Gummies. The Super Green Gummies are uniquely crafted with a spectrum of essential nutrients such as vitamins A, B12, folic acid, and thiamine. It supports a healthy liver function, healthy nervous and immune system,
digestive health, a boost to your metabolism, and overall health and well-being. There are no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or colors from artificial sources. They're vegan-friendly, gluten-free, and gelatin-free. All loyal listeners of the D-Lew Podcast get a special 10% discount at checkout. Go to goalie.com, use promo code DLEW. That's goalie.com, use promo code DLEW.
Now, obviously, like I said, theater, is on a stage, but now you're performing on another stage with stand-up comedy. How did you transition and get into stand-up comedy?
I had always just given such a respect for comedians. I remember seeing like Jeff Dunham live and just different types of comedians that I watch on, different streaming services. My first forte into stand-up was my parents had gone to a friend's party, and I was like 15 at the time, 16. So I was just home, just chilling by myself. And I was on Netflix and I found Eddie Murphy Delirious. And I was like, oh, I know Eddie Murphy. I was like, I'm going to watch some of his old stand-up. And I remember just putting it on and just being amazed and just laughing how just funny and electrifying that is, and how just a guy on a stage with a microphone can just get this rapturous applause and laughter. And I just remember like that ended and I was like, oh, I need more of his stand-up. And then I found Raw, and then those were the only two specials he had on Netflix.
Right.
So just going down a rabbit hole of, he was from Saturday Night Live. So I got into Saturday Night Live like that. And then that leads to when I was 16, I was in Philadelphia at the Punchline Philly seeing Michael Che live, who is an amazing writer on SNL, one of the anchors of Weekend Update. And he's doing some crowd work with my father and I, and I'm wearing a Weekend Update shirt. He's like, what do you want to be when you're older? I'm like, a comedian. He goes, oh, you think you're funny? And he grabs me, brings me on stage, and he's like, we'll introduce you. Just do a type 5. I'd never done stand-up before. So, and this whole thing's videoed, and I'm so happy because it's such an insane story. So I go backstage and they go, making his comedy debut, welcome to the stage, White Jacob. Just a name they made up for me. So I walk on, and I did arguably maybe my tightest 5 I've ever done. And it was just funny. They were laughing, the audience was laughing. And in the video, you even hear him say, like, this doesn't work. He's like, this never works out. He's expecting me to go up there, bomb and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I did it. 5 minutes. He thought it was funny. The audience loved it. I get off stage. We're going to leave. And the security's like, Michael Che wants to see you. So my dad and I go backstage, and he's like, listen, you're funny. He's like, stick at it. And he gave me a bunch of websites and everything, and websites I still use to this day to just get, gigs and everything. And it was honestly just a surreal experience. I remember like just the car ride home being like, that didn't just happen. That there's no way that actually just happened. Like I just passed out for like 5 minutes, right? Like that didn't happen.
Right.
It was the most surreal thing in the world. And honestly, like that, my dad knew the second I walked on stage, she's like, this kid's going to want to do this. So
that's an incredible story. Now, did you, do your experience of doing theater and then also in comedy, what are some of the similarities and what are the differences in your opinion?
I mean, the difference with stand-up and a theater, like musical or play, is if you do a musical and play and the audience just isn't feeling it, it's not fine, but it's, hey, we're at this song, we got 20 minutes of the show left. We could do it. With stand-up, you do 5 minutes and no one's laughing, it feels like an hour of no one laughing. So, even if you do a comedy play, it's all written, when the end is. And with stand-up, it's just if a joke doesn't land, it's hard because you can't pass the ball to anyone. You're just on stage by yourself. You just got to take the hit. And trust me, I've had those nights. I've performed to quote unquote crowds of 5 people, and you just gotta do the best of it, and hopefully you can make fun of someone at some point.
Yeah, speaking of which, so you hear stories about, heckling, and then, obviously the incident that happened at the Oscars last year that we're not going to talk about right now. But have you faced some of those challenges as a comedian where, you got that heckler that wants to get their 2 minutes of fame, or someone's not really feeling your material? And if that happened, how did it affect you?
So I guess that's one thing is I can, pat myself on the shoulder on, is growing up doing improv and watching a lot of heckler-based comedians like Jimmy Carr. It's quickly built in me just to be quick on my feet and always ready.
Mm-hmm.
I pride myself on hecklers and crowd work. In the sense of, here's the thing, if I'm telling a joke that is written and I know there is a punchline coming up, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
But if someone yells out something during that joke, it can ruin the flow. And that's when I start getting mad. But I love interacting with the audience. And it's funny you brought this up. I had a show maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And there was a drunk guy in the crowd and he yelled something out, and all the comedians are just they're trying to joke with him, but he's on that brink of just not giving you anything to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Which those are the worst. If someone yells out something, you can easily go after them, but when they start going on, like either like they're slurring their words or they're just not giving you anything to bite onto, it that can really drag a show. So comedian after comedian's going up and he's just trying to do something. I walked on stage, didn't even get to my first joke, and just went right after him and just started going at him. And then someone yelled out something like that was really mean. I'd go after them. Did probably a good 5 to 10 minutes of just crowd work and just going at different people in the audience. So I go backstage, and the guy who booked me for the show goes, "Dude, I give you credit. Like you're like the crowd work king." And I was like, that's not a bad title. I'll take that. So a lot of comics respect that I can do a lot of crowd work, and it's starting to get around at the comedy club I go to, around of like, if I'm on stage, don't yell at him, don't yell at anyone else, don't yell at him. He's gonna win. Like,
let me ask this another secondary question though. When it comes to crowd work, is there a psychology to that? Because not to your point, not a lot of people are as quick-witted. Some people might freeze. Some people can lose their flow, as you said earlier. Is there a psychology to that? Is there a thing that works for you? Even as someone that's not a heckler, and you may see somebody in the crowd, are you concerned whether they could take the joke or not? If you see like a pair of shoes they have on that may not be, up to par, whatever the case, or if they have on a hat that's like, what the heck is that? Like, yeah. How do you read people and then, trying to deliver that punchline?
So I know sometimes I've gotten myself in frisky situations of, you're cracking jokes and everyone's laughing, but they're not laughing. And some people just don't like being the butt of a joke, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So in instances like that, where maybe I say something and they're not enjoying it, I will somewhat try to, I guess, in a sense, take a hit and turn it around and quickly make a joke about myself, because they'll feel like they won, because it's like
self-deprecation.
Yeah, where it's like they've been making fun of me, and at the end I made fun of myself, so they go, oh, now they're laughing at him, so I guess like the attention's off me or something like that.
Right.
And some people are totally cool with a joke. Like some people, I've had Cowboys fans come into a show one time, and their hat, jerseys, and everything.
Oh boy.
And I'm not the biggest sports guy, but I'm like, why are you wearing this? I'm like, what time are they playing tonight? And the dude goes, oh, they're not playing tonight. Well, what the fuck? Why are you wearing it then? You're asking. That's the easiest thing in the world.
Especially in the area that you're in. I mean, just in general, like, why would you do that?
My favorite thing, I remember looking at him being like, you and I are going for the same thing right now. Attention. That is what you and I are both going for. So, but yeah, I've had a 10-year-old in my crowd one time, and I'm just like, who let you in? Like, just the most random things that happen. And I just, like you said, like if someone's just wearing something weird or just something different, and it's so much fun because you could pick out the smallest thing. Like if I wore this Pac-Man hoodie like out, someone could easily just make a quick joke. It's so much fun to find the most niche thing for me. And as for like if there's like a science behind it, every once in a while I might peek out, look at the crowd, and look for one or two people if I know something's going, I can maybe jump to real quick. So I maybe usually have like 5 or 6 ready to go in the back of my mind.
Right. Now, how do you come up with your material depending, you know what I mean? Like no matter if it's a 5-minute set, 10 minutes, 15, or even 30 minutes, how do you come up with that material? Is it almost like writing a song? Is it almost like writing, a movie? Like, how do you come up with the material? Obviously memorizing it to get to the punchline and all these other different things. You're telling stories. How do you come up with your material?
I definitely like to, well, one, I kind of do have to look at the crowd and see what I'm dealing with. If I get a crowd of a bunch of 20-year-olds, I know, okay, more or less anything I say they're going to get. This will be up their alley.
Right.
But I've had some older crowds where maybe the punchline of the joke becomes a part of the setup, and I quickly write a different punchline where if the punchline is a young reference, saying that in the setup and then in the punchline being like, oh, for you that don't know, it's like this thing you grew up on. So they can be a part of the joke, and I don't have to rewrite or change everything. And as for coming up with the sets, I love the idea of it feeling natural.
Right.
I have a couple comics who ask me like, do you come up with this stuff on the spot? And it's such a compliment because I love if they're saying that, then it feels so genuine coming from me. Because stand-up is performance, but I love the idea of being like, I'm just talking right now. I'm just talking and I'm making you guys laugh.
Right.
I'm not trying to sell you on a joke. I'm just, hey, this thing happened and this, and just getting a laugh. So when people ask like, oh, you're just making this up on the spot. No, a lot of it is pre-written stuff that but I come off and say it as in like, oh, and this just appeared in my head to make it feel genuine and authentic for them and like feel like a original show.
Right. Now, I know a lot of times, comics, and I'm a fan of comedy, and I've been watching. Actually, this year is the 40-year anniversary of Delirious. Actually, and I saw it when I was 5, probably at an age when I should have been watching it. But I grew up on Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, then Martin Lawrence, and the list goes on and on. There's so many different stand-up comics. Dave Chappelle, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
And a lot of I know Richard Pryor used to talk about pain a lot of times, how it will come from pain. Then obviously you would have to be very vulnerable, to tell personal stories of pain. Do you have material that allows you to be vulnerable from pain?
Yeah, I mean, I love talking about, if anything, really personal stuff, because I want to be able to have things that people relate to, whether they've experienced it already or going to.
Right.
I mean, I have a cousin who's about 5 or 6 years younger than me, and I've talked about things on stage where it's like, you don't get this. Well, one day you're going to. And just so he knows, like, everyone goes through it, whether it's like a breakup or something happens. And with the pain, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too deep right now, but I got out of a relationship probably coming up on maybe a year or so.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think of what to say to not get myself in too much trouble. I'm trying to, the person I was with was a very nice person. As for a relationship, was very, I would say, best term I come up with, maybe toxic, and
Mm,
mentally not suitable.
right.
And that took a toll on me because the things that would be said, or that I felt like I felt like I didn't have a voice, and all
Right.
the things I kept inside, when that relationship ended, I felt like I definitely have never, I'm not the only one that have experienced this. So let me talk about this in a mostly respectful manner. And people seem to relate and laugh because this happened to me and this sucks. And it's like, has a lot of the time I just go, has anyone else here experienced that? And you get a decent amount of people are like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And have people after the show, I had a girl one time in New York come up to me. She's like, I want you to know, like, I just got out of a relationship, of a couple of years. And she's like, you have no idea like how much this like helped me realize how I I wasn't the problem. And I didn't know I was part-time comedian, part-time therapist. I was but it just is so nice to be like, this is a messed up situation and I went through it. So it was shitty for me. It was shitty for you. Let's all come together on this shitty moment. So
Right. Right. Exactly.
yeah, and obviously it's coping as well. You know what I mean? Like,
Indeed. And I will always say that whether you're listening to art or if you're creating it, it's therapy. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
me doing this podcast right now is therapy for me because this is another creative outlet where I get to be me on my own platform, and providing an opportunity for people that I know, people that I don't know, to come on and tell their stories and what they're doing and where they're headed to accomplish their goals and dreams. You know what I mean? So it's
yeah.
very therapeutic when you're dealing, especially in the arts, especially. Now, I know you said Michael Chad giving you some advice, early in the part of the conversation. Has there been any other veteran comedians that has given you some really, really solid advice that you've taken heed to?
Yeah, this was in Philly, actually the exact same comedy club, so I gotta go over there more often.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to have a conversation with Pete Davidson, and
Mm, okay.
and this was like right when Pete was huge. It was during COVID. He was performing outside,
Mm-hmm.
right under the turnpike, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a unique experience, and he signed my copy of King of Staten Island and just talked to him. I was like, I'm a comedian, and I told him, I was like, I when I was 16, I did a show with Michael J here, and he was like, listen, man, just good. He's like, just keep doing it. He's like, any opportunity you get, like, just do it. He's like, you had the guts to come up and start a conversation with me. He's like, people would just be quote unquote too starstruck or too nervous. He's like, you came up, you're well spoken. He's like, just keep at it. He was coolest guy in the world and genuinely so nice. He's one of the nicest guys in the industry.
He seems like a really solid dude. You know what I mean? And I would love to work with him someday. Whether and I would love to have him on his podcast someday.
Yeah,
If
it's
I'm if
great.
I'm if I'm very if I'm fortunate to have it. So, what other comics do you study?
So for the crowd work and quick wittedness, I give a lot of credit to a British comedian named Jimmy Carr. Um, Comedy style is very crass and crude and no filter, which I like, which is just, that rawness. Um, Bill Burr, in his way to make an audience tense up, and right before he loses them, breaks it with a joke. That is, I think, one of the most talented things in the world is just how he can bring an audience so far into uncomfortable, and right before he loses them, just brings them right back.
Right.
That just the charisma of Eddie Murphy is amazing. How he is just so naturally funny, and I mean, he saved a show. He saved SNL from probably going off air.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, I could probably, think of 1,000 comedians for different things. Bo Burnham is an astounding writer who's just every word and inflection is picked out beautifully. And, I give a lot of credit to the duo of Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. Those two, unstoppable next to each other.
I enjoyed their work. I really enjoyed their work.
Exactly. And when they did Weekend Update, just it's so rare to find two people who just, it's like they both don't bring 100, they both just bring 1,000, and it just explodes like that. So I think I give credit to most all comedians that just do stand up for bringing their own twist to it. And I'll probably get mad at myself for not mentioning a certain comedian that influences me, but I just respect for every comedian, George Carlin and all that. So
great, man, great. Your goals, short term and long term, whether it's obviously in the comic world or in whether it's TV, film, theater. What's your short term and long term goals?
Well, short term right now is I'm currently working on a TV pilot of an original series that I wrote that we filmed a scene for, and we're using that to kind of show the humor of the show. So short term in the next year would be just, wrapping filming on that, getting that edited and put out, see what people like. I'm also currently working on an original musical of a pseudo story that happened to me, but just, obviously that inspired by, and then just take it, make it a story.
Make it your own, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then another short-term project I'm working on right now is actually an anime, which I never thought I would get into. I've just been watching the Castlevania series on Netflix, and my roommate got me on Cowboy Bebop, and I'm like, this looks so cool. I love the art style and everything. So it's like, I don't know, I've had an idea, so I'm playing around with that as well. As for long term, I plan on this might be short term. I plan on doing a stand-up special, just an hour of, me doing stand-up, telling stories, and I just want to have fun on stage. That's, I love being on it. As for long term, I mean, going to the Academy Awards with you, I mean, that'd be great.
That'd be cool. That would be really cool.
And honestly, just I want to get to a point long term where I can just, tour every state in the US and just do stand up and just, spread just laughter and just people who enjoy the same things I do. I would absolutely love that.
Now, where can people find you, on social media, website, YouTube channel, the whole 9 yards?
So on Instagram, it's all my social media is very long, so I got very lucky with these domains. Instagram and TikTok are both at Brandon Michael Maddox. And yeah, on TikTok, you'll see a lot of my stand-up clips, and every once in a while, a little skit. Instagram is more behind the scenes of anything I'm filming or working on. And as for YouTube, yeah, Brandon Michael Maddox, I'm currently working on multiple things for that will be posted, and we'll just show off, obviously, the stand-up side with recorded clips of that. And then my other side, I love gaming and movies, so like possibly reviews, but with my own twist on them. And I mean, those are the main ones. I absolutely use those all the time. I try to post and just keep spreading out just the brand and my sense of humor.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you so much, for coming on to the show. This won't be the only time. You know, you now that you've been
Thank
on the
you.
show, you're a friend of the show for life. So down the road, you know, we can definitely cross paths on this, you know, on the podcast again. We could talk about some things, you know, even more thing. Heck, for all we know, you might be hosting SNL someday. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Thank you.
Or be a cast member on SNL. I could definitely see that for you, because I think based off the things that you said, and you know, as far as your approach to things, I can't see why that's not a possibility. I think if you're putting in the work, you're putting in the time and the effort and the energy, you know, to do what you do, you know, the sky's the limit, man. So I could totally see you, you know, as a cast member on SNL, man.
Let me tell you, man, that is one of the biggest compliments ever. And let me tell you, when that happens, I'm coming on this podcast and you and I are talking about everything. I'm telling you all behind the scenes secrets. That'll be.
That's a bet. That's a bet, man. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming on to the show, and
Thank you.
we'll be talking soon, man.
Well, that does it for this week's edition of the D-Lew Podcast. Again, I want to thank Brandon Michael Maddox for stopping by the show to talk about all aspects of his career in stand-up comedy as well as in the acting world, and I wish him all the best in his future endeavors. What I need you all to do is stop by my store, shop.derricklewis.com, and I have actually a new t-shirt that I just launched recently for Pride Month. And all of my Pride Month themed t-shirts all proceeds from that I receive from the sales from those shirts will be donated to charity. That is something I've been doing for the last couple of years, and I will continue to do that. And many of the philanthropic initiatives that I have regarding my company, Siete Music. So go over to shop.derricklewis.com, get your hoodies and tees there. You can follow me all on my social media. It's Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok @TheRealDTLew. Facebook is Derrick T. Lewis official page. If you haven't subscribed to this show, please do so on whichever platform you so desire. So if it's iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. If you Google the D-Lew Podcast and you see the choice of platform you want to listen to it, by all means, please feel free to do so. But make sure subscribe to the D-Lew Podcast, and you can always get all new content every single time. So make sure you hit subscribe. Well, I'm going to get out of here, and just remember, no matter what you do in life, always remember to make it count. See you next time.